Good evening. Would you please take your seats? We're about ready to begin. My name is Ray Martinez. I'm the former mayor of Fort Collins. I'm happy to MC this program tonight. And it's a wonderful event involving Abby Johnson. Many of you have heard of her, and if you haven't, you will. And you will learn a lot. This is a thoughtful event and a great turnout, too. I want to thank everybody for coming. Would just give yourselves a round of applause. This is good. As you know, what this talk is all about, of course, is about life and sanctity of life. And we don't always know why circumstances happen in our life the way they do, but we try to understand the best we can. I remember a story by Paul Harvey. Anybody ever heard of Paul Harvey, the old radio? Yeah. And Paul Harvey was telling a story one time, and he was conveying the story of a woman that was in the elevator of a hospital, and she was giving birth to a child right there. And the nurse and the orderlies were trying to help her, and she kept saying, "I am so embarrassed. This is so terrible." And she just kept lamenting about it. And the nurse, trying to calm her down, said, "Don't feel bad. Last year, we had someone deliver a child right on the front lawn of the hospital." And she said, "I know, that was me." We don't know why circumstances happen in our life the way they do. And I can certainly relate to this, and that's why I'm so anxious to hear Abby speak tonight. Because I myself was given up for adoption at birth, and I was relinquished to the state orphanage home in Denver, Colorado, which was a huge orphanage. It processed over 17,000 children from 1895 to 1972. So it held a lot of children from infancy to age 18 and 19 years old. And of course, a lot of values I learned in that orphanage, and it's, you learn things about acceptance, accepting people for who they are, how to share things in life. It's not a greedy system when you're living in an orphanage, and how not to stereotype people. And as life went on, I grew up, obviously, and I grew old. I'm getting older. And I've been on a quest for many years trying to find my birth mother. And it was in 2005 when I finally made contact with my birth mother, only to find out, and after our reunion, which was a beautiful reunion, I found 4 sisters and a brother that I never knew I had. But to only discover that my mother thought I was dead all this time, because when she gave me up for adoption, she wanted to hold me one more time, and they told her that I had died. Now that's tragic when you think about it, but yet what a beautiful reunion. And my mother had to give me up for adoption because, one, she couldn't afford me, and the other part was that she was a victim of a serious sexual assault event. And that's how I came to be. Even I can live through this, and my mother could live through this. And I wanted to do a couple of things for her. One, I wanted to let her know that life turned out great. I became the mayor of the city. I was in law enforcement for 25 years. And this community wrapped their arms around me and took me under their arms. And I appreciate that, and I love that. It's people like you that help our children grow up. That's all right. And when my mother and I did get together, she told me the story about what had happened to her and how she was violated against her will. And yet I told her that what I wanted to do is let her know that life turned out great, and I wanted to thank her for giving me life and not taking my life. It's a huge difference. And she gave me a chance to live. So I lived to tell this story, and I even published a book about it, which you'll probably find out there. But I want to make sure before we get into Abby and sharing her story, because I'm so anxious to hurry up and get right to that point, but I want to make sure we thank people who have really helped support this and bring this to fruition, and especially to Neil McCaffrey for his support and sponsorship of this program, to Robert Garthwaite Sr., and to St. Thomas More Parish in Centennial, and the Blessed John the 23rd University Parish. Would you please give them a round of applause? And we have other special guests. There's some that have traveled a long distance. Father Robert Weedo and Father David Nix. They came all the way from Sterling, Colorado. Where are you guys? Where are you? I know you're here. But thanks for coming all the way from Sterling. And with us tonight, this evening, is our Colorado State Senator, Kevin Lumber. Kevin, would you stand up? Thank you. I don't know if Ken Buck is here. I think he was going to try to attend. I don't know if he could make it or not, but I know he certainly wanted to attend. Now, the sponsors of this event is Colorado State University's chapter of Students for Life. Now, can you appreciate that? Students for Life. That's what this is all about, isn't it? Yes. Students for Life is a 30-year-old national student network of pro-life clubs at the university campuses that works to educate and raise awareness about the dignity and sanctity of all human life from conception to natural death. There's been a chapter at Colorado State University for 4 years now, and it's rapidly growing, and we want it to continue to grow. So if you're a student and you're interested, we want you to sign up. We're ready to help serve you and to make you a part of what this organization's about. Their next meeting is February 28th at 5:30 p.m. You'll see these cards on your chairs. Come to that meeting. Students, those of you who are interested or curious, this is an opportunity to learn and to grow. That's what it's all about. You know, there's two important days in our life: the day we were born and the day we found out why. What is our purpose in life? And tonight you'll have a purpose to see why it's so important to be here. So without very much further ado, and so we can get on with the program, I'm going to introduce to you the president and the vice president for Students for Life at Colorado State University. The president, if she would come forward, is Molly George, who's the president for Student for Life, and she is a senior studying philosophy. After graduation this year, she plans to take a year off and then secure a master's degree in philosophy at the University of Steubenville. Would you please welcome her? And also, as the vice president, Miles Cole, if he would come forward. He is our vice president and is a sophomore studying business. And after this year, he is most likely going to St. John Vianney Catholic Seminary in Denver. Would you please welcome Miles? Wow. He's got a fan club. So without further ado, I'll let the Vice President and the President for Student for Life to do the main introduction, and enjoy the program, and thank you again for coming.
Thank you, Ray. On September 26, 2009, Abby Johnson walked away from the life she had been living for 8 years. She was left without her job, her friends, and the cause she had advocated since she was in college.
Abby Johnson has always had a fierce determination to help women in need. It was this desire that both led Abby to a career with Planned Parenthood, our nation's largest abortion provider, and caused her to flee the organization and become an outspoken advocate for the pro-life movement. On behalf of Students for Life at CSU, it is our pleasure to introduce Mrs. Abby Johnson.
Thank you. Stop it. I hadn't even said anything yet. I could really blow it, you know. Well, I am from Texas. Any Texans here? All right, well, don't brag. No, it's good to be here. I'm from Texas, so howdy. Howdy. Seriously? Howdy. Howdy. Much better, much better. You're almost Southern. Well, it's good to be here with all of you. It's my first time in Fort Collins. Not my first time in Colorado, but my first time in Fort Collins. It's beautiful here. Beautiful people. It's cold. And I tell people cold weather is strictly from the devil. I know this because God intended us to be naked. And there's just saying. Anyway, I want to welcome all of you. Thank you so much for being here. I am expecting that there are people in this crowd that are for abortion rights, and I am especially excited that you all are here. Welcome. this is not a time for me to bash the pro-choice movement. This is a time just for me to tell you my story and to tell you my personal experiences inside the abortion industry. And I hope that we all walk away feeling impassioned on one side or the other, and feeling like we all took something away from this event. I want to start out by telling you a story. I don't know if any of you are familiar with, there was a man named Dennis Rader, and he was known as the BTK killer. Some of y'all familiar with that? Okay, so this man, Dennis Rader, he killed at least 10 women in the course of a 20-year period. And he would, his BTK, bind, torture, kill. That's why they called him that. And he would bind women. He would stalk them for weeks. He would go to their homes. He would enter their homes. He would bind them up. He would torture them. He would rape them. And eventually he would kill them. And this guy, Dennis, he was a fantastic guy as far as the community knew. He was a deacon in his church, and he was a volunteer for Habitat for Humanity. He was a Cub Scout leader. He was involved in all these different community organizations. And when the police came to arrest him, the community they were freaking out because they were like, no way. I mean, I know you have DNA evidence, but, it's not 100%. And this is the one time, right, where that 0.004%, this is that one time, because there's no way that this upstanding guy in our community could have done this. So the police ended up going to his home, and they found he had taken a souvenir from every one of the women that he had killed, like a driver's license or something like that. And so he had this stack of souvenirs from these women that he had killed, and so they knew for sure that he had killed these women. And he ended up confessing to all the murders. And anyway, now my question for you is this. He was a really good guy. I mean, I know he killed 10 women. I know that. But he did a lot of good things in the community. I mean, he was like a nice guy. He was good at the church, and he was good for all these community programs. So, I mean, since he was such a good guy, can't we just let it go? No? Are you sure? He was really great. No? Well, that's weird, because I tell you what, we as Americans give a pass to Planned Parenthood every year. Now, I know they do some good things. I know they do some exams. I know they do some testing, but let's take it into perspective. They kill over 330,000 children every year. So why won't we just give this Dennis Rader guy a pass? We do it to Planned Parenthood, one of the world's largest nonprofits that happens to gross over $1 billion a year. Why not the pass for other people that kill? Why the pass for Planned Parenthood? Well, I'm here to tell you that my life has changed dramatically over the past 2.5 years. I used to do public speaking for Planned Parenthood, and I tell people God is funny. Now I'm standing up here. In fact, I got all of my media training. I was the media correspondent for the Planned Parenthood affiliate I worked for, and now I use that same media training to publicly oppose them on TV. So thanks, Planned Parenthood. So anyway, but this has not always been my life. I started working at Planned Parenthood when I was in college, and in 2001, and believed I was doing the right thing. I was confronted by this woman that was at Planned Parenthood, and she was telling me about how wonderful Planned Parenthood was, and how great they were, and how they provided all of these services. And I mean, you know what? And they did it all for free. And I thought, well, that's sweet. That's nice. And so I thought, who wouldn't want to get involved with this organization? And she told me then that they also performed abortion procedures, and I told her that I was raised pro-life, so I didn't know how I felt about that. And she said, "Oh, honey, I understand, but these pro-lifers, see, they mean well, but they just don't have the whole big picture. And so, your parents are great people, I'm sure, but see, they just don't see both sides of it. They don't see how we need abortion, because if women don't have access to legal abortion, then they're just going to be, falling out all over the floor from these illegal abortions. Right? I mean, everywhere, I'm telling you." And I thought, well, that's terrible. And she said, gosh, first they take away our right to have an abortion, then what's next? They take away our right to vote, and then we can't wear pants, And I thought, okay, this makes sense. I mean, I was raised in a pro-life home, but we didn't sit around and talk about abortion. So I didn't have the rebuttals ready for those talking points that she was giving me. And so I tell people I think I had sucker written across my forehead that day. She gave me a volunteer application. I filled it out. I was volunteering the next week. And I remember volunteering the first day and feeling kind of unsure about whether, how I felt about this pro-life or pro-choice thing. But eventually, the longer I was there and the more women I met there, I really kind of got entrenched into it. And I thought, I like this hot pink shirt, and I like, telling people that I'm standing up for women's rights. And so I totally bought into it. I totally bought into the idea of abortion on demand. And I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was helping to save women's lives. I wasn't a bad person. I was a good person. I gave to lots of charities, and I went to church every Sunday, and I was a good person. And the people that work inside the abortion industry, they are good people. But they are the ones that don't see the whole picture. And I see that now. And so that was my life. I was there for 8 years. I rose up in the ranks of Planned Parenthood. I was Planned Parenthood's Employee of the Year in 2008. I know you're all very proud. And I worked for the affiliate. It's the fourth largest revenue generating affiliate in the United States, Planned Parenthood of Houston, Southeast Texas. And we had just built, in 2009, we had just built and opened the largest abortion clinic in the Western Hemisphere, second largest to China. It's a 78,000 square foot facility in Houston. And the third floor is dedicated to performing abortions up to 25 weeks gestation. And I had an office right next to one of those operating rooms where we were going to be performing late-term abortions. And I was really excited about it. I was excited about my office. I had it all decorated in my head, things from IKEA. And I thought, this is great. This is who I want to be. And in April of 2009, after I got my Employee of the Year award, I got to go to the PPFA annual event, big gala, 2,000 plus people, and my perk for receiving the Employee of the Year award was to sit by Hillary Clinton. I know you're fans. Hold on to the excitement. And I got to sit next to her, and so I know it's shocking, but she actually wasn't there to meet me. She was there to receive Planned Parenthood's highest award that they give out every year, and that is called the Margaret Sanger Circle Award. Now, obviously, you guys know who Margaret Sanger is, and not fans. And Margaret Sanger, if you don't know, she was the founder of Planned Parenthood. She believed in eugenics. She said things like, blacks are human weeds and need to be exterminated from the human population. She partnered with the KKK to try to exterminate the minority population. And they still continue to give their highest honor out in her name every year. And so I was there, and I remember sitting there and watching her and watching her give this talk, and I just thought, oh my gosh, I've made it. It's just never going to get better than this. This moment right here, sitting next to Hillary Clinton, is very intimate, me, her, and 10 Secret Service people, and I thought, it's never going to get better than this moment right here. And I watched her walk up to the front and receive this beautiful award. And I don't remember anything she said, but I remember looking at her and thinking, oh my gosh, I want to be just like her, but with better hair. And I want to be just like her. I want to be standing up in front of people and inspiring women and standing up for reproductive rights. And that's what I wanted to do. And that's what I had aspired to do for 8 years. And ironically, those of us that were planning on retiring with Planned Parenthood, you know what they called us? Lifers. I bet they don't call them that anymore. They probably changed it up. Anyway. And that was in April of 2009 when I went to that dinner. And in August of 2009, I had a budget meeting with my supervisor. And you see, at Planned Parenthood, every Planned Parenthood in the country, they have 2 separate budgets. They have one budget that is for abortion, and they have one budget that is for everything else. And they have a quota for that budget for abortions. You have to perform X amount of abortions each month to keep the staff on at your clinic. And so I was looking at my budget and comparing it to the fiscal year 2010 budget, the upcoming budget, and I noticed that something had to be wrong. There had to be a mistake because I was looking at this family planning budget, the non-abortion budget, and I noticed that the amount of women that they wanted us to care for and they wanted us to see every month in 2010, it had actually stayed the same. But the amount of abortions they wanted us to perform had doubled. And that didn't make sense to me. Because aren't we at Planned Parenthood supposed to be trying to reduce the number of abortions? Isn't that what they say? Right? Don't they say they want to prevent the need for abortion? And so I was thinking to myself, well, this must be an error. Then, I mean, the numbers of abortions shouldn't be increasing then, right? They should be at least staying the same or maybe even decreasing. And so I voiced this concern to my supervisor, and she looked at me and she said, Abby, you need to get your priorities straight. Your priority needs to be abortion because that's where the money is. Now, you as pro-lifers are looking back at me and going, duh, right? But I was genuinely shocked. I had advocated and been a cheerleader for this organization and had tried to convince people that we really didn't want to increase the number of abortions. But here I'm hearing this from my supervisor, and I don't know what to make of it. But I had been justifying my life with Planned Parenthood for 8 years. I had been justifying my job, justifying my career. So somehow I went home that day and I justified that conversation between me and my supervisor. But then about a month later, we had a visiting physician come into town. And he was a private practice, still is a private practice abortionist. Him and his wife perform abortions. They actually live in the clinic where they perform abortions. I know, it's weird. And but he had been doing abortions for a long time and came very highly recommended, and we needed to put someone else on our physician rotation. And see, there's no doctors at a Planned Parenthood clinic every day. The only doctors that come in are the ones that come in to provide abortion procedures. And so this doctor was going to come in and we were going to try him out, and he came in and was telling me that he performed abortions a little differently than Planned Parenthood's protocol called for. He said that during the abortions he performed, he used an ultrasound to actually see what he was doing during the abortion procedure. All right, question. How many of you have had your tonsils out? No good. How many of you have had like something done with your teeth? Like a filling or something like that? Okay, good. Okay. Now, I thought everybody had their tonsils out. Okay, I guess not. So anyway, okay, let's say that your dentist comes in and your dentist says, hey, guy, you know what? I'm going to put this blindfold on because I'm kind of tired of doing fillings the same way over and over again. And I'd like to kind of jazz it up, you know? So I'm going to do it blindfolded. Is that okay? Is that okay with anybody? No? Well, that's weird because that's how abortions are performed in this country almost 4,000 times a day. It's a blind procedure. They don't see what's taking place inside the womb while they're doing this surgery. Abortion is the most common surgical procedure in the United States. But yet they're doing it blindly. And so what they do is they have this cannula. Cannula is the instrument. It's kind of rigid plastic. It's hooked up to the suction machine. And it's graduated. It's like a straw. It has a hole on both ends. It's graduated depending on how far along the woman is in her pregnancy because the size of the head gets bigger, and that has to fit through that tube. And so they have a cannula that's hooked up to the suction machine, and they take that suction and they take that cannula and they push it into the woman's uterus, and when they think they feel some tension at the top of the uterus, they stop. And then they move it a little over to the left, and they suction out that part, and they move it a little over to the right, and they suction that out, and they keep suctioning until they think they have enough blood and tissue in a glass jar. And so when the doctor, it's no wonder that we have things like uterine perforation, right? If they don't feel that tension at just the right time, they'll poke a hole right through the uterus. I met a woman who was 21 when she had an abortion, and she was for several weeks. She knew she had a problem, but they wouldn't tell her what the complication was. And then a few weeks later, she started getting sick. She had a really high fever. She didn't know what was going on. And she went to the emergency room, and her reproductive organs had developed gangrene. And she had a hysterectomy at the age of 21. And so when this doctor was describing that he actually held the ultrasound on the woman's abdomen during the abortion believe it or not, he could see what he was doing. That made sense to me. And so I asked my supervisor yet another question. I said, why aren't we doing this all the time? This is what makes sense. This is what is safer for these women. Why aren't we doing this all the time? And she told me, well, to use an ultrasound during an abortion takes about an extra 5 minutes of time. And since we're trying to get anywhere from 25 to 50 abortions completed in a day, we simply don't have the extra 5 minutes of time. And so I left, kind of understanding that, but then again, also wanting to do what was best for these women coming in. And so this doctor had told me that when he came, he would do one ultrasound guided abortion so that I could sit in on it and watch what happened during the abortion. And I got to be honest, I was really excited about that. I thought this is going to be a great learning opportunity for me. And so the day came, and I was called in to the abortion room, and my job during the ultrasound during the abortion was to hold the ultrasound probe on the woman's abdomen. And so I did that. Let me say, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nurse. I'm not certified as an ultrasound technician. My education, my degree is I'm a therapist. So if you're having a hard day, we can chat, but if you need an ultrasound, I really don't have any business doing that. But at Planned Parenthood, they don't care. You don't have to be licensed. You don't have to be a medical person. You just have to be willing and be a warm body and take a 2-hour in-house training class, and then they set you loose with a transvaginal ultrasound probe. And so I was doing this ultrasound. The woman was 13 weeks pregnant. Now I want to ask you, on a 13-week-old fetus in the womb, are arms and legs developed? Fingers and toes? Heart beating? Brain waves functioning? Eyes and ears? Yes, absolutely. All of those things are completely developed. In fact, we could even tell if it was a boy or a girl. And they think that by 13 weeks, the the unborn child can actually hear the mother's voice. So everything's there. All the internal organs are for everything. And so I remember looking up at the screen and watching the screen and kind of getting a pit in my stomach because I was thinking, what is this going to look like? Right? I mean, this looks like a kid up there. So what is this going to look like? But I was reassured because Planned Parenthood had sent out a memo. And they had sent a memo out to all the abortion counselors, and it was entitled, Answers to Tough Questions. Now, I can tell you the number one question I got asked as an abortion counselor was, will my baby feel this? Not, will this embryo feel it? Not, will this massive tissue feel it? They always recognized it as a baby. Because they knew there was something different, right? If you go to the doctor to have a mole removed, you're not like, yo, doc, how is this mole going to take it? Right? I mean, who cares? It's a mole, right? But these women, they knew that there was something very different about this massive tissue that they were carrying in their womb. And they wanted to know how their baby was going to react. And Planned Parenthood knew that the answer to that question was pivotal. Because there was no way I could look at a woman and say, well, yes, it's going to be terrible, and there's going to be a lot of pain for your baby. Now let's come on in here and get started. Nobody would do that. And so Planned Parenthood had an answer. They had a scripted answer that they sent out nationally to all of the abortion counselors, and that answer was, no, the fetus has no sensory development until 28 weeks. That means the baby doesn't feel anything until 28 weeks. Now, do you believe that? Well, I did. I mean, I had to know better because I'd already had a daughter, and I remember feeling her move at 18 weeks, and I'm 20 weeks now, and I tell you what, if I poke this kid, he'll poke me back. Because my baby feels what's taking place inside of my womb. If the baby can hear his mother's voice by 13 weeks, why in the world would we think that a baby would not be able to feel something before 28 weeks? But you see, we had to believe the lie. I had to believe the lie. The women that were asking me that question, they had to believe that lie because there was no way that they could think it was a lie and then continue doing what they were doing. We had to continue to justify what we were doing, justify the wrongs that we were participating in. Because the truth was too scary. The truth was too risky. And so that day, I remember watching that screen and reassuring myself. I was reciting that scripted answer over and over again in my head. The fetus has no sensory development until 28 weeks. I was reciting that over and over again in my head. And I watched as this cannula, that suction tube, went into the woman's uterus. And I saw it go right up to the side of the child. And when it touched the side of the child, that baby jumped. And the baby began to flail his arms and legs, and the baby began to flee, trying to find another place in his mother's womb to run. But there was nowhere to go because, you see, the mother's uterus is so perfect. It's so perfectly built. It's just the right size for that baby at that time. But finally, this child, it was a little boy, this child was fleeing and he had gone right up, he was backed up against his mother's womb and there was nowhere else to go. And the doctor had to reposition the cannula to move the instrument closer to the child. And he asked the technician to turn on the suction and he said, "Beam me up, Scotty." And the suction came on, and I think people think that what I saw on that ultrasound screen was the worst part. I mean, can we all agree, though, that abortion is graphic? Yes? we can all agree that abortion is not a tidy, bloodless procedure. Yes? Absolutely. And so I knew that too because I was actually trained as a POC technician. POC, anybody know what that stands for? Products of conception. What is products of conception? Baby, right? But you can't say baby inside of an abortion clinic. You're not allowed to say baby, so we called it POC or POC. And there's someone in every abortion clinic that is trained as a POC technician. And your job as a POC technician is to take all of the tissue, all of the contents that were emptied out of the uterus, and dump them into a dish and reassemble them. You have to, that person, the POC technician, has to account for the arms and the legs and the torso and the head. Why? Because if you leave part of the child in the mother's womb, then she can become septic. She can develop a very serious infection and she could die. And so I knew how graphic abortion was. I knew how gory. I knew how much blood was part of an abortion procedure. I knew that because I had seen it in that dish. Okay, she's fine. Everybody look up here. And so I knew that. But what I didn't know, I mean, when I saw that instrument going, when I saw the suction turn on, and I saw that baby becoming dismembered in his mother's womb, I saw the arms and legs detaching from the body, I saw those pieces going into the tube, that wasn't as shocking for me as seeing that child running and fleeing for his life. Because I had never thought of the child as a living person. I had never considered that, but then in front of my own face, I was seeing the humanity of a child. And I mean, there we were, there we are in our scrubs and our medical coats and our masks and our gloves and all of our technology and instrumentation. And that little boy didn't have a fighting chance that day, but he did fight. And I can't look at you today and say, yes, I know exactly how that baby was feeling in the womb. I know that that baby was scared. I know that that baby felt pain, but I do know this. If someone walked in one of those back doors and they were carrying a gun or some type of weapon that could take our lives, I would not look at all of you and say, all right, everybody, there's a guy in the back with a gun, and so I want you to gather up all your belongings, don't leave a mess, and just calmly, single file, walk, line up, and we're all going to calmly walk out that back door. Is that how we would act? Of course not, right? I mean, I would say, hey, there's a dude with a gun. Everybody, leave your stuff. Who cares? And, and grab the person you like and run over those you don't. And get out of here. Get to one of these exits, right? Because our life would be in danger and we would be frantic. And what I saw on that screen was a child who was frantic. Frantically fighting for his life. And I walked out of the room that day and I went to my office trying desperately to find a justification for what I had just seen. Because I didn't want to leave my job. I liked my job. I made a lot of money. They have to pay you a lot to give up your morality. And most people have a price point. And they had found mine. And I made a lot of money. All of my friends were in the pro-choice movement. I knew that if I left, I was giving up a lot. I went to a church that was pro-choice, and that church, after they found out that I had left Planned Parenthood and become pro-life, they actually told me I was no longer welcome in their congregation. And so I knew I would be leaving a lot behind, but I knew that there was no justification for what I had seen. I knew that it had been me. I had been lying to and betraying thousands and thousands of women. Women that came to me for an answer, and I looked right back into their eyes and I gave them a lie. And you know what? That was the worst part. Knowing that it had happened probably 4,000 times on my watch, and I had done nothing. None of us at the clinic, we had done nothing. That was the worst part. Knowing that mom was laying there on that table, sedated. She had no idea what was going on. She had no idea that we had just taken the most precious gift away from her, and that was motherhood. She had no idea. She had no idea that her little son was up there on that ultrasound screen, desperately in need of her protection. But none of us protected that little baby. That was the worst. And knowing that it happens every day in this country, almost 4,000 times a day. And I don't believe for a second that abortion has been legal for 39 years because of Planned Parenthood, because of the swarm of hot pink t-shirts, because of pro-choice lobbyists. I don't believe that at all. I believe abortion has been legal for 39 years in this country because of apathy. Because we know the truth, we see the truth, and yet we do nothing. If we were to walk out of these doors tonight and walk out to our cars and we saw this little cute 2-year-old toddler and she's sitting on the ground and she's talking to us and waving, and all of a sudden we see a man walk up to her and kick her in the face and then begin to pound on her body over and over again until she's just laying there lifeless, what would we do? Would we just look at this little body of this child and go, wow, that was shocking. I'm going to go home and pray about it? Is that what we would do? Or would we stand up for that child? Would we do something? I think we would. But you see, we can't see abortion in that way. We can see violence against children. We can see poverty. We can see those types of things. We can't see a child fighting for his life. We can't see a child becoming dismembered in his mother's womb. We can't see that. We can see the aftermath, but that doesn't show us the humanity and the dignity of every single one of those children. But we have to know it happens, right? I mean, everybody knows abortion happens every day, right? What are we doing about it? Are we just staying at home and praying about it? Because I tell you what, with 1 in 3 women having abortions in this country, staying at home and praying about it is not enough. Not anymore. And who have we lost? From abortion, 30% of our population is gone because of choice. Who are we missing? I tell you a funny story. When Bill Clinton was in office and Hillary was the first lady, Hillary invited Mother Teresa to come to the White House and have lunch with her. This is a big debacle. Hillary Clinton got this Mother Teresa award, and everybody was kind of, in an uproar about it. And so anyway, she asked Mother Teresa to come to the White House and have lunch with her. And so there was a little bit of media there, and Hillary Clinton, they were sitting there. It had been pretty uneventful. And finally, Hillary looked at Mother Teresa and she said, do you think there will ever be a female president? I mean, do you think that's ever going to happen in this country? And Mother Teresa didn't even look up from her meal. She simply said, well, you've probably already aborted her. We do not know what we are missing from this country. The person that had the brains to cure cancer. Your best friend. Your family members. People that we will never get to meet because of the tragedy of abortion. I mean, I'm missing 2 of my children because of choice. My parents, I've taken 2 grandchildren away from them. My daughter is missing 2 siblings. Who are we missing? We don't even know how much abortion has affected us. There's been these economists, people much smarter than I am, and they have done all of this research. They've done this unbiased research, and they have actually shown that we wouldn't be in this economic downturn that we're in right now if we hadn't aborted 30% of our population. Now that pretty much affects everybody in here. We are all affected by abortion, whether you know it or not. And with 1 in 3 women having abortions and 72% of them coming from inside the church, you better believe you all know someone that's had an abortion. You may not know who it is yet. But the women having abortions are women that we care about. They're good women, but they're women that are scared and desperate and ashamed. And when you are scared and desperate, you will do almost anything to make your biggest problem go away. They think abortion is solving their problem. What they don't realize is that they are opening up so many problems. They will live with that guilt and that regret forever. Abortion is packaged as this really nice present with this really pretty bow on it. But when you open it up, it's like opening up a bag of snakes. It's not a good gift. It's not a good present. And as someone who considers themselves pro-woman, I believe that all women deserve better than abortion. I believe that everyone deserves a birthday. There is no such thing as an unwanted child. And I want to allow you to have time to ask questions. Many times you learn more from me just not jabbering, but from me answering your specific question. And so I would like to get your questions. I would like to answer anything that you may have about the abortion industry or about abortion in particular. People always want to know, where do the babies go after abortion? I'll be happy to answer that. People want to know about Planned Parenthood sex education curriculum. People want to know about all kinds of things, and I'm happy to answer any question that you have for me. So if you just want to raise your hand and
I have a floating microphone here. Is this microphone on? Okay, I will take them.
In the CSU student newspaper this morning, Abby, there was a quote from a young lady who said that Abby Johnson spreads falsehoods about Planned Parenthood. Can you address that?
Sure. I mean, if I don't know what's going on inside of Planned Parenthood, then I'm not sure who would. I worked there for 8 years of my life. I dedicated 8 years of my life to this cause. I sat on national boards for the National Abortion Federation and for Planned Parenthood Federation of America and for the Consortium of Abortion Providers. If I was still at Planned Parenthood right now, I would be the COO of the 4th largest revenue generating affiliate in our country. I don't know everything about Planned Parenthood, but I certainly know my experience, and I certainly know enough to be considered someone who is credible on the topic.
I'm not exactly sure how to put this, but I was having a discussion on Facebook and was told that Planned Parenthood did not do abortions in their clinics. And I'd like a little more light shed on that, because when you go to some of the websites, it does say they do not perform abortions, because I looked that up afterwards. So I'd like to know how to answer this person.
Sure. There are clinics there are Planned Parenthood clinics that provide abortions, and there are Planned Parenthood clinics that only refer for abortions. But I can tell you this: I worked for I sat on the board for the group called Consortium of Abortion Providers, and it's a subgroup within Planned Parenthood Federation of America. And CAPS, our primary goal was to turn every non-abortion providing Planned Parenthood into an abortion providing Planned Parenthood by 2015. We had a big map of the United States, and we had red and green dots on that map. The green dots were for non-abortion providing Planned Parenthoods, and the red dots were for abortion providing Planned Parenthoods. And they are already starting to accomplish that goal. Last year, Planned Parenthood came out with a mandate stating that every Planned Parenthood affiliate must be an abortion providing affiliate by 2013. Now, if they really are interested in decreasing the number of abortions, why are they requiring every affiliate to become abortion providing? That doesn't even make sense. That's inconsistent. But I can tell you that one of the reasons, the only reason that they are interested in increasing abortion numbers is because it will increase their bottom line. It's the best way for them to increase their revenue. Planned Parenthood's budget is comprised of 51% abortion clinic income.
If you still have time to do sidewalk counseling, I'm not sure if you do, but
I do.
How do you lovingly meet a woman who works for Planned Parenthood where she is, and also challenge her to the point to get her to think about what she's doing, but in a gentle way without being rude?
Yeah. I do sidewalk counseling, and I actually just started a ministry 3 months ago to proactively reach out to clinic workers inside of the abortion industry. And in that 3 months, we've seen 15 abortion clinic workers leave the abortion industry and have conversions on the issue of abortion. And so there are hundreds of women that feel trapped inside of the abortion industry. Maybe they're single parents, they get insurance, they have these benefits that they haven't had before, and so their income is very important to them. And so the one thing about sidewalk counseling and trying to talk to a woman who is working, or a man who's working inside of an abortion clinic, it's a little different than talking to a woman who's going in to have an abortion. Right? Because I see some, it's funny, I'm not making fun, but I see some sidewalk counselors where a woman will get out of her car, someone who works for Planned Parenthood, and, all of a sudden they go like auctioneer on them. They're like, hi, I just want to let you know we're praying for you today. You don't have to go in there. We can find you a better job, right? Well, you don't have to do that with a clinic worker, because a clinic worker is coming to work every day. And so you have the opportunity to build rapport and dialogue with that woman. I mean, I can tell you that one of the relationships that was developed with me took weeks. It took weeks of time. And she didn't start out by going, hey, I just want to let you know my name is Elizabeth, and I'm going to be praying for you out here, and if you need any kind of prayer requests, let me know. And I mean, that wasn't how it was. It started off with a week of me getting out of my car and her just saying, hey, Abby, I hope you have a good day. And then it started to snowball. And it was like, hey, Abby, I hope you have a good day, and I'm going to be praying for you. And then it was a little bit more, and by several weeks' time, several weeks had passed, and she finally said, you know what, Abby, I don't know what keeps you here at this clinic, and I know that you have good intentions for working here. I know that you care about women. I know that's why you're here, and I just want to let you know that I would love to talk with you about maybe some of our commonalities and some of our differences. I would love to take you out to coffee or us go to dinner. And I tell you what, when she offered that to me, I remember sitting at my desk and staring at the phone because I really wanted to go eat with her. I really wanted to get to know more about her. And I was not a nice clinic worker. That was rude. you know? And I said ugly things. I wasn't like oh yeah, give me a hug every time I go to work. I was not nice. I ignored them. I said ugly things. I mean, that was me. But her developing that relationship with me over a long period of time, that's what made the difference to me.
Yes, Abby. The affiliation with the Girl Scouts of America and Planned Parenthood, can you give us a little insight on that?
Yes. Planned Parenthood has been affiliated with the Girl Scouts for many years, more than 20 years. They are financially tied to the Girl Scouts. You may have a Girl Scout troop here that is clean and has nothing to do with the organization, with Planned Parenthood, but if they buy cookies, if they pay national dues, if they buy uniforms, if they have badges for their girls, then they are contributing to Planned Parenthood. And that's something that a lot of people find hard to believe, but it's well documented and the financial records are there. And there are websites out there. One is girlscoutswhynot.com, and you can find the actual paper trail there. When I worked at Planned Parenthood, we had brochures that had the Girl Scout logo on the back. Planned Parenthood brochures that the Girl Scouts had endorsed. There was actually a brochure that came out about a little over a year ago, called Healthy, Happy, and Hot. And this brochure, I don't mean temperature, this brochure was geared toward young women aged 8 to 16. And this brochure had things in it. It was put out by Planned Parenthood, endorsed by the Girl Scouts, and it had things in it like, if you are HIV positive, you do not ever have a need to disclose that to your partner that you're having sex with. That's up to you. That's your personal status. And if you don't want to tell your partner, that's perfectly okay. It talked to 8-year-olds about different types of sexual activity. Talked to them about different ways that they can have sex without getting pregnant. I don't know about you, but I don't want my 8-year-old finding out about oral sex and finding out about masturbation from a Planned Parenthood brochure. But that was the age that they were targeting, and the Girl Scouts heavily endorsed that brochure. The website is girlscoutswhynot.com.
Those two budgets that you mentioned earlier, the one for abortion and one for everything else, how big is each of those compared to the other?
Well, I mean, I can tell you in my clinic, the fiscal year 2009, I'll just give you an example. Fiscal year 2009, whenever you would put the two budgets up on, they would, write them and put them up on a whiteboard. And at the end of fiscal year 2009, we were actually in the hole $300,000 for a family planning budget. Now you think that's terrible, right? But we were up in surgical services. We were up in our abortion budget by $1.2 million. So it just kind of wipes out and clears out that negative number. Planned Parenthood gets a lot of, in 2010, they received $487 million of taxpayer money. That taxpayer money, some of it is distributed differently to clinics. So, I mean, it's hard to say, well, this was the number for this and this is the number for that in all clinics. But we do know, according to their own report, that 51% of their revenue comes from abortion services.
I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on the tremendously lower abortion rates and teen pregnancy rates over in countries like the Netherlands and France and Germany.
Well, I don't know. I don't live there, so I don't know how these kids are parented. But from what I understand, the things that I have seen, the parents take a much more active role in educating their children on sex and on the dangers of sex and respect for their bodies. And so one of the things that we're missing in this country is parental involvement. And the parents want the school to educate their kids on sex and want the school to educate their kids on everything. And so many times we see groups like Planned Parenthood going into public school systems and teaching kids about sex, and their sex ed curriculum starts in kindergarten. And one of the things, is well documented on the internet, one of the things that Planned Parenthood likes to do with kindergartners is they take stuffed animals into the room and they show these 5-year-olds different sexual positions with the stuffed animal. And when some parents found out about that, they were, of course, outraged, and Planned Parenthood defended their actions and said, this is part of our sex ed curriculum. This is just part of it. Kids need to know about different sexual positions at age 5. And so when we have groups like that coming into the school and promoting sexuality and promoting that type of behavior to children beginning at 5, it's no wonder that our kids are becoming sexual at a very early age. And the parents aren't taking any interest. There was a high school in Vallejo, California, and there was a medical clinic, and they thought it was just like, the parents thought it was just like the nurse's station, right? It was a medical clinic in the basement of the building. And this woman, this mother, saw a pack of birth control pills in her daughter's purse and flipped out and was like, why do you have birth control pills? And why in the world are you going to Planned Parenthood? And she said, I didn't go to Planned Parenthood, Mom. I went to the school health center in the basement. And what the parents didn't know and what had not been advertised was that was actually a Planned Parenthood clinic based inside of that public high school. And they had been distributing birth control and had been taking kids at 8 o'clock in the morning after their parents dropped them off, taking them to an abortion clinic, allowing them to have an abortion during the day without their parents' knowledge, and taking them back to school by 3:30 for their parents to pick them up. And their parents had no idea. And so when we have those types of things going on in our public education system, and when we have parents totally disengaged from their kids because they don't want to have the talk or they don't want it to feel uncomfortable, well, then your kids are going to find out from somewhere else. And chances are, this day and age, they're going to find out from Planned Parenthood. And they're going to be told things like, oh, don't worry about telling your partner if you have any STDs or HIV. It's no big deal. Oh, don't worry about using a condom because we have Plan B and we can give it to you. And hey, who knows? Maybe one day they'll have it in a vending machine at a campus near you. I think they're thinking about doing it here. And so the more that we let that type of morality go down the drain, the higher we are going to see teen pregnancies and teen sex in this country.
Okay, we have time for about 3 more questions, and I have those people queued up with some quick questions.
So I just want to say that thank you. You have opened my mind to a lot of new ideas. I was raised in a very, very, very adamantly pro-choice home. So I just want to say thank you for that. And I know this was geared towards like pro-life people, the speech. I was just wondering what you would say, because the number one thing why I was pro-choice for such a long time is in the case of rape.
Sure.
I don't know why anyone would tell a woman that she has to carry the baby of a violation. And that's something that I've been kind of curious about, like
Sure.
how you would justify pro-life in that situation.
Sure. Thank you. And this is a question I get asked a lot, because even a lot of pro-lifers have this, well, I'm pro-life except in A, B, and C, right? And most of the time it's, well, I'm pro-life except in cases of rape and incest. And so one of the things I tell people is that I, as a therapist, I've worked with many women who have been sexually assaulted. And at Planned Parenthood, I saw women who had been sexually assaulted, and a pregnancy had occurred from that sexual assault. And there are very few things worse that can happen to a woman than her being violated and traumatized in that way. And so many times what we would see is we would see this woman coming in and thinking, if I have this abortion, then it's going to make this sexual assault go away. But studies have actually shown, psychological studies have shown that women that have abortions, that, where the child is a product of sexual assault, the women do far worse than if they decided to parent or place their child for adoption. because the women come in thinking, well, I've had this trauma and I have this big open wound and now I'm pregnant, so I'm going to have the abortion, and then I can start healing. Then my wound can begin to heal. But what actually happens is that they are yet traumatized and violated again. They are violated again by the abortionist and by the abortion clinic. And so now, instead of having just one gaping open wound, now they have two. And it takes much longer for their healing to even begin, for them to even begin to process healing or process forgiveness for themselves when you have two open wounds rather than one. And I also tell people, I mean, I have friends that were conceived in rape and are now very successful. And one of my friends, Rebecca Kiesling, who is a pro-life speaker, she speaks specifically on this topic, and she says, did I deserve the death penalty for my father's sin? Do any of us deserve death for the sins of our parents? Does a child become less of a child because that child is conceived in maybe a circumstance that is an inappropriate circumstance? A child of rape, is that child then a dolphin? Or a cat? Of course not. That child is still a human being. And none of us deserve death for the sins of our parents.
Thank you, Abby. And that's why I'm alive today, because my mother was a victim of an assault. And I became the mayor of Fort Collins.
So you talked briefly about the women who are in the situations that get abortions, just their lives aren't going great and they're in a really desperate situation. I just kind of wondered, have you seen any movements in the anti-choice community or the communities that you're touching to kind of be like the hands and feet of Jesus and like love those women and adopt those babies? And like, I just feel like that's why I'm so on the fence, is because I don't see like the love of the pro-life community like embracing those women. Mm-hmm. So do you see that? Are you doing anything to like encourage that?
Yeah. I've got 2 pregnant moms living in my house right now that were saved from abortion. Yeah, and I'm not the only one. I see hundreds of families that have opened up their homes to women who were contemplating abortion. I actually met a woman in Missouri, and she has adopted twins. She was out there sidewalk counseling, and there was a woman going in, a young 17-year-old going in, and she said, you don't have to do this today. I know people that would love to adopt your child. I will adopt your child. And she came back out and said, all right, well, if you're serious, I'll give them to you. I got twins. And she adopted those twin babies. Her daughter actually adopted another child from a woman who was in prison, and the state of Missouri, the prison system had actually given her a deal that they would lessen her prison time if she would have an abortion. And so this woman talked to her, and she decided that she would not have an abortion. So yeah, there's a group called Teen Mother Choices International. They are all around the country. They are providing for women who decide to change their minds. We have pregnancy centers. We have 4 times the amount of pregnancy centers in this country rather than abortion centers. And these pregnancy centers are willing to take women in. They're willing to help them with material needs. They're willing to help them with spiritual support, emotional support. And I can tell you, working at Planned Parenthood, that doesn't happen there. One of the things I tell women is that Planned Parenthood may be here for you today for your abortion, but they will not be here for you 2 days from now, or 2 weeks from now, or 2 years from now when you regret your abortion. And there are thousands of groups worldwide that are taking in women, taking them into their homes, taking them into maternity homes, sheltering them, providing food, providing money, providing needs for these women. So, and I'd also like to say that when I worked at Planned Parenthood, I knew not one family that had ever adopted a baby. Not one. And I worked with tens of thousands of people. I knew not one person that adopted a baby that worked inside the Planned Parenthood movement. I know thousands of pro-lifers that have decided to walk the walk and to practice what they preach and adopt children. One of my friends back in College Station where I used to work, she's adopted 9 children. And she's very active in the pro-life movement. So what I see is, I see a group of pro-lifers all across this country and worldwide that are willing to walk the talk. And they are willing to put their money where their mouth is. And they are willing to take in these women. And so maybe wherever you are, you're not seeing it, but it's definitely out there. And the help is definitely out there. You got a pregnancy center right here, down the road. So if you don't think anything's going on, maybe you should go visit the pregnancy center. You stand up. That's the director of the pregnancy center here, and I'm sure they would love to give you a tour of their center and show you what they are doing for these moms who are contemplating abortion. And it doesn't just stop after they have the baby. They help women up to 2 years, and sometimes even longer than that, after they've had the child. The monetary, the financial, the spiritual, the emotional support continues to go well on after the baby's born.
All right, Abby, we have one more question here, and then we're just about out of time right here.
All right.
Hi, Abby. I was just wondering, you were saying we can't just sit in our rooms and pray. What are some actions and steps that we can take towards the pro-life movement?
Okay, that's great. You have a 40 Days for Life group here in Fort Collins because you have an abortion center just down the road from you here. And regardless of what that Planned Parenthood says, they do provide abortions. They do them on Friday and Saturday. I called today to find out. I didn't lie. I just called to find out. They do abortions every week here on Fridays and Saturdays from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. 40 Days for Life is... Where's the leaders of the 40 Days for Life? All right, stand up. 40 Days for Life is a prayer vigil that is held twice a year. It's for 40 days. You'll do 12 hours? 40 days, 12 hours a day. They are out there reaching out to women, not harassing them, not judging them, not condemning them, not saying they're going to go to hell, not calling them baby killers, not holding up graphic signs. That's not what they're out there doing. They're out there offering compassion, they're offering mercy, and they're offering alternatives to abortion. Because these women, when they go inside of the abortion clinic, they are not going to get any other options. When I was at Planned Parenthood, I wrote because I am a therapist, and I thought, well, if we're saying that we're doing options counseling, we should really be doing options counseling, right? That makes sense. And so I actually wrote a 75-page protocol and submitted it to Planned Parenthood Federation of America, to the protocol department, to see if they would pick up this protocol so that we could have a national training on adoption, a national training on fetal development, all of these things, right? I got a letter, this was right before I resigned, I got a letter back from PPFA telling me that they would not approve my protocol because it was not cost effective, which means there is no money in options counseling. There is only money in the sale of abortion. They don't make any money if a woman comes in and decides to parent her child. They don't make any money on a woman who decides to place her child for adoption. The money for them is abortion. They are not interested in options counseling. They are interested in selling abortions. And so 40 Days for Life is there to just gently talk to these women. Just give them 5 minutes to talk to these women and let them and just give them other options that they may not hear, they may have not even thought of before they go in there and make the biggest decision of their life. That decision is final. You can't take it back. And so these women and men going in, they should be sure that they have all the resources they need, all the information they need. And that's what 40 Days for Life is doing. It's really easy. You don't have to talk to anybody. In fact, if you're not trained to talk to people, don't talk. Bad sidewalk counseling is worse than anything. So, but you can go out there just simply being there and praying for an hour. I can tell you that the national no-show rate at an abortion clinic is 50%. 50% of the time, a woman does not show up for her abortion. When there are people standing out in front of a clinic praying, just praying. They don't have to be sidewalk counseling, just being there and showing witness to the culture of life, that no-show rate goes up to as much as 75%. So, there is power in just a prayer, a peaceful prayer presence. Like I said, you also have a pregnancy center here. You guys turn down volunteers? No. She looks at me like, I don't even know what that means. No comprende. Pregnancy centers, if you don't want to be out there on the front lines, I'll tell you what, being out there in front of an abortion clinic, it's uncomfortable. And it's awkward. And I don't wake up in the morning going, I am so jazzed to go out to the abortion clinic today. It feels uncomfortable because you're watching women walk in and potentially take the lives of their child. The life of their child, that is uncomfortable. But it's not about being comfortable. It's about doing the right thing. My mom used to say, if you're a Christian and somebody's not mad at you, then you are not a very good Christian. So, you can believe that when you go outside of an abortion clinic, you will get flipped off and you will get yelled at and you may have somebody throw something at you and people are going to honk just to get your attention, just so you see them flipping you off. But that's okay. Because I figure with 33% of our population hurting from abortion, that's exactly what it is. It's hurt. And they don't know how else to demonstrate that hurt except to be angry at those of us that are trying to be a part of the solution. And so it's not comfortable to go out there, but if that's something you don't feel like you're called to do, you can certainly volunteer at a pregnancy resource center. They're seeing women every day who are contemplating the life or death of their child. And maybe you don't want to talk to the women. Maybe you're like, no, that's too much for me. Well, that's fine. They have like stuffing, envelopes, you can stuff, you can lick them, you can put stamps on them, or they'll probably give you a sponge with water so you don't have to lick them. But there's all kinds of things that we can be involved in. Planned Parenthood is, I say this with certainty, Planned Parenthood is having the hammer dropped on them right now in legislation. And we've had 7 states in the past year, because we can't depend on our federal government right now to do the right thing. So we've had 7 states in the United States defund Planned Parenthood at a state level. And my state, the state of Texas, not bragging or anything, but we were one of the 7. And since that defunding has taken place, it took place October 1st, 2011, we have had 14 Planned Parenthood clinics shut down in our state. There's a congressional investigation going on of Planned Parenthood right now. It's a federal investigation. They already know that Planned Parenthood has been committing fraud. They already know that they are defrauding the taxpayers, defrauding the government. And so there's a congressional investigation going on right now to look into all of those claims. And there have been court cases that are out right now with people who have worked inside the abortion industry, basically being whistleblowers and talking about how Planned Parenthood is defrauding the government. And there's all kinds of things they're investigating, and that's at a congressional level. And so there are things that you can do in the legislative department where you can go to your Capitol and you can write your congressman and you can send letters, and you may feel like I don't know what to say. Well, just say why you're against abortion. Just say why abortion is not right, is not the right choice, is not the right choice for women, for men, for families, for our society. These people want to hear from you. And there is kind of something lacking in the pro-life movement at the grassroots level when we're talking about legislative issues. And so we need to step that up. We need to be writing letters. We need to be telling our congressmen, our senators, that we are praying for them. and that we are standing with them as they make right, life-affirming decisions. And so there are so many things that we can do in the pro-life movement. There's really no excuse for any of us not to be actively involved. My 5-year-old daughter goes out to the abortion clinic and prays with me. And so if she can do that, then any of us can do something. And so I encourage you to all get involved in some way, spread the message, be an advocate. Don't just be pro-life, but be a pro-life advocate. Go out and talk about abortion as much as you can. You never know whose life you may be saving. And I want you all to not feel discouraged in this movement, because we are winning. For the first time in decades, Planned Parenthood's abortion numbers are on the decline. We are actively taking away the money that they are using to harm our children and to get into our schools. We are finally becoming successful at that. 40 Days for Life, we've seen almost 6,000 babies that were scheduled to be aborted. They are now alive because people were just outside praying for them and praying for their life. 69 clinic workers in the past couple years have left the abortion industry and are now speaking out against the evil of the abortion industry and Planned Parenthood. So we are winning. Things are changing. And I know this isn't a religious talk or whatever, and I appreciate people here that are atheists, but, or, you know, whatever. But, you know, what, I don't know. I do. I work with the Atheists for Life group, the National Atheists for Life group. The problem with the Atheists for Life group is that they're all becoming Christians. And so the group just keeps getting smaller and smaller. But anyway, I tell people, look, I don't care. People are all happy. We're never going to win. We're never going to beat Planned Parenthood. Look, they got Bill Clinton. They got Bill Clinton. They got Bill Gates. They got stacks of bills. And I say, look, I don't care how many stacks of bills they have on their side. We have the #1 guy on our side, and that's Jesus Christ. And we will win this war. Thank you so much, and God bless.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you thank Abby, please? Thank you very much, Abby. Great speaking. Great. Thank you very much. In conclusion, Molly and Miles will come up to the front and present Abby with they just presented her with a bouquet of roses, huh? How about that? How about that? You know, please take a seat, and I want to just give you a couple reminders. You can give donations for Student for Life. They have envelopes back there, baskets that you can donate to. Just write the checks for Student for Life. And keep this in perspective, what Abby is teaching us today. You don't know what that life is going to turn out to be. I was lucky. I got to find out. And my mother, when I wrote her and we talked to each other, she said, because we connected back together, and we still are very close, because we connected back together, she wrote me a note. She said, my son, my dearest son is what she wrote. She said, my dearest son, you've made my life come full circle. This had bothered her for years. And now, because we're reunited, that's what we should be doing. I remember watching a program one time. It was on the News Hour, and it was CBS interviewing a priest who was very popular in New York City, and they consider him a very popular person. And he asked him, the anchor person asked him, he says, what do you see as your role and your purpose in life? And he said, I am here to comfort the ones who are disturbed and to disturb the ones who are too comfortable. That's what we should be doing. That's what we should be doing. Thank you for tonight's program. If you want to be part of Student Life, take this card. I encourage you to join. Go to their next meeting. If nothing else, just listen. Thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate you very much.